Hi, my name's Sam Johansson and I'm completing a Bachelor of Clinical Exercise Physiology. I'm completing this assignment for Exercise 335, Motor Control in Human Development, under Dominic McNeil. The focus of this assignment is fatigue and performance. Fatigue has been shown to have a significant influence on the ability of an individual to control movements. Fatigue is characterized as either central or peripheral. Central fatigue is associated with the changes in synaptic concentration of neurotransmitters within the CNS. In contrast, peripheral fatigue is fatigue that is associated with muscle exhaustion. By gaining a deeper understanding of fatigue and its effects on the human body, this will create the ability to prolong fatigue or even minimize the detrimental effects on performance. As a result, the aim of the current study was to examine the effects of physical fatigue on performance of a motor skill. The experiment consisted of two groups and involved a fatiguing task interspersed with a kicking task which utilised the individual's non-preferred foot. One group completed just the kicking task first, while the other group began with the fatiguing task. After this, the groups switched and completed the task they did not complete first. In both groups, participants completed 10 blocks of 10 trials, recording how many steps were completed and how many times they hit the target with the soccer ball. One trial in the fatigue condition consisted of 2 minutes of stepping onto a raised platform, followed by 10 kicks at the target and then repeated. One trial in the rest condition consisted of 10 kicks at the target, followed by 2 minutes rest. All kicks were taken 5 metres from the target and a goal equaled 1 point. The most significant conclusion drawn from the data is that when individuals were performing the fatiguing protocol, the number of goals kicked was significantly less, as seen in Figure 1. This suggests that peripheral fatigue may have had an impact on the ability to perform the skill. However, in addition to this, the order in which the groups completed each condition seemed to have an impact on the results. Figure 2 shows the individuals that completed the fatiguing condition first. As you can see, there was a slight trend in the graph from trial 2 to 6. As the individuals were fatiguing from stepping, the number of goals got progressively less. In the last 4 trials, however, the individuals performed at their best at the time when they should be most fatigued. This would suggest that a learning effect has occurred as the participants have gotten better at performing the skill. This is further evident in Figure 3, which is the group that performed the fatiguing trials second, after having already practiced kicking. As you can see, the kicking is much more consistent and is remaining similar irrespective of the fatiguing exercise. This could be considered a limitation of the study, as learning impacted the outcome. Most individuals who completed the task were untrained in soccer, and therefore they got better at the skill throughout the mass practice. Another limitation may be that due to the nature of the fatiguing exercise, individuals may not have pushed to their maximal and therefore not have been fatigued when kicking at the target. What is fatigue? Fatigue typically refers to decrements in muscular performance with a continued effort, accompanied by a general sensation of tiredness. Alternatively, fatigue has also been defined as the inability to maintain the required power output to continue muscular work at a given intensity. Fatigue can mean different things to different people. For example, the fatigue felt by a 100-metre sprinter is different to that of a long-distance runner, and as a result, fatigue is an extremely complex phenomenon. As I previously highlighted, central fatigue has been described as the changes in the brain and central nervous system, while peripheral fatigue is said to occur within the muscle itself. The mechanisms behind central fatigue have been attributed to alterations in neural control of muscle contraction. The theory suggests that processes occurring in the brain regulate power output by the muscles to maintain homeostasis and prevent unsafe levels of exertion that may damage tissues or cause catastrophic events. The central fatigue theory limits exercise by decreasing the recruitment of muscle fibers, which in turn causes fatigue. Peripheral fatigue has been attributed to 3 main factors: One factor is that fatigue is induced by a decreased rate of energy delivery, such as ATP, PCR, anaerobic glycolysis, and oxidative metabolism. Another explanation for peripheral fatigue is the accumulation of metabolic byproducts such as lactate and hydrogen ions. The third reason is that peripheral fatigue may occur as a result of the failure in the muscle's contractile mechanism. What are the practical implications of fatigue for the performance of motor skills? Mechanisms of fatigue depend on the type and intensity of exercise, the fibre type of the involved muscles, the subject's training status, and even his or her diet. A number of studies have aimed to determine the role of fatigue in performance and the execution of a skilled task. One such study, conducted by Lyons, Al-Nakib, and Neville in 2006, examined the effects of moderate and high intensity localized muscle fatigue on passing performance in soccer. Similarly to our study, subjects completed as many split squats in 1 minute before completing the passing task. The results reported that high intensity localized muscle fatigue has a detrimental effect on passing. The author suggests that this may have implications for training in that players need to practice executing skills under high levels of fatigue to minimize the decrements in passing. Another study conducted by Owen and colleagues in 2008 also examined the effects of fatigue on motor coordination. However, this study compared professional table tennis players to recreational players. The results found that highly skilled players adjusted their movements in order to preserve the task in terms of accuracy when under fatigue. In contrast, the recreational players did not adjust their movements and accuracy deteriorated with fatigue. This suggests that athletes may be able to prevent movement deterioration when under fatigue. Similarly to table tennis, a tennis serve and forehand drive is another complex task that requires high amounts of skill to perform and execute correctly. In 2013, Rota and colleagues investigated the effects of fatigue on these two tasks and trained tennis players alone. The main results reported that intense intermittent tennis exercise induced a significant decrement in serve velocity, as well as accuracy, and also forehand accuracy and consistency. Additionally, the fatigue exercise caused a decrease in muscle activation of the chest and forearms. However, it was noted that muscle recruitment timing and EMG frequency were unchanged. This suggests that fatigue triggers some mechanisms to preserve technique. The study suggests that although adaptations are implemented by the central nervous system in terms of muscle activation, they appear insufficient to prevent performance degradation. Another study by Martin and colleagues in 2016 aimed to examine the kinematic, kinetic, and performance changes that occur during a prolonged tennis match. The study was conducted on 8 advanced tennis players across a 3-hour tennis match. It was found that over the duration of the tennis matches, that decreases were evident in serve ball speed, ball impact height, maximal angular velocities, and an increase in the rating of perceived exertion. Interestingly, no changes were found in the timing of maximal angular velocities. This suggests that advanced players may be able to preserve their serving technique under fatigue. The general findings from these studies suggest that higher levels of fatigue produce detrimental effects on the outcomes of performance. In addition to this, it is proposed that expertise in the motor skill enhances the ability to adjust motor coordination in order to limit the effects of fatigue. Currently, the majority of studies only examine the effects of fatigue on highly skilled athletes, and therefore more research is needed surrounding the effects of fatigue on amateur athletes. Another limitation in the current literature is that most studies utilize small sample sizes and cannot determine the exact cause of fatigue. In the current study, it can be concluded that fatigue did have an impact on performance of a motor skill. The evidence found suggests that fatigue may be induced by peripheral factors. The reason for this is that the group completing the fatiguing task saw larger decrements over the 10 trials compared to the non-fatigue task. Central and peripheral fatigue alone cannot explain all aspects and all types of fatigue, as several different factors may altogether bring about fatigue. Many questions about fatigue still remain unanswered. Following the current study, future research should aim to minimise the effect of learning during the task and also ensure that exercise is fully maximal to ensure fatigue. Thank you.